Graceland, the estate of legendary singer Elvis Presley, is facing a legal battle now over a potential foreclosure sale.
For decades, Graceland stood frozen in time, an open shrine to the king of rock and roll. Fans poured in by the millions, clutching their cameras, posing by Elvis's gleaming pink Cadillac, and placing flowers near his resting place. But while everything below seemed preserved in loving memory, high above, one room remained untouched, sealed shut like a vault of forgotten truths. No visitor ever saw inside. No photograph ever captured it. The attic stayed locked, until now. In 2025, the door was opened for the first time. And what was discovered didn't just stir nostalgia. It rattled the myth of Elvis Presley to its core. Inside were weathered boxes stuffed with old stage costumes, yellowed photos, and memorabilia caked in time. But beneath the glittering past was something else, something human, something haunting. This wasn't just about the man on stage anymore. This was about the man behind the spotlight. And the question that now lingers: what was Elvis hiding all those years, and why did it stay buried for so long? Before he ever sang to millions, Elvis was just a boy in Tupelo, Mississippi, born on January 8, 1935. That same day, his twin brother, Jesse, was delivered stillborn, a silent tragedy that shadowed his life from the start. Raised by Vernon and Gladys Presley, the family was tight-knit, but constantly on the edge financially. Vernon scrambled for work, while Gladys poured her entire being into raising Elvis. Her protection was fierce, and their bond ran deeper than most could understand. For Elvis, she wasn't just a mother, she was his anchor. And when he lost her years later, that anchor would snap. The soundscape of Elvis's childhood was soaked in gospel choirs, hymns echoing through Sunday church walls, and the blues drifting from nearby neighborhoods. When he turned 11, his mother scraped together enough to buy him a cheap guitar. He didn't have lessons, he had grit. He mimicked what he heard, trained his ear, and played alone in his room. No one knew it yet, but something revolutionary was quietly taking shape in that boy with slick hair and shy eyes. When the Presleys moved to Memphis in 1948, Elvis was 13 and surrounded by the raw, pulsing music of Beale Street. He kept mostly to himself at L.C. Humes High School, standing out in loud clothes and a quiet manner. He soaked in gospel, rhythm and blues, and black musicians' electric performances, imprinting them into his soul like secret ingredients. In 1953, Elvis walked into Sun's studio to record a song as a gift for his mother. It was supposed to be a small gesture, but the receptionist and studio owner Sam Phillips sensed something rare in the shy teen's voice. A year later, Phillips paired him with guitarist Scotty Moore and bassist Bill Black. They recorded "That's All Right," and suddenly, everything changed. It wasn't country, it wasn't blues, it was something new, and it couldn't be ignored. Early audiences didn't know what to make of him. He moved like no one else. He stared into the crowd like he was letting them in on a secret. His deep, teasing voice, that knee shake, that raw charisma, he was magnetic. RCA signed him in 1955, and by 1956, the hits exploded. Heartbreak Hotel, Hound Dog, Don't Be Cruel. Teenagers screamed, parents panicked. America split down the middle. Some called it genius, others called it chaos. Just when it felt like Elvis could do no wrong, life delivered a twist. In 1958, at the peak of his fame, he was drafted into the U.S. Army. Instead of dodging it, he went willingly. While stationed in Germany, he endured heartbreak like never before. His mother passed away. The grief was unspeakable. Elvis was changed, quieter. Elvis returned to the stage, Las Vegas became his kingdom, and night after night, he lit up the Strip with glittering performances that mixed passion with spectacle. The jumpsuits, the fireworks, the roar of the crowd. It was a new chapter. But behind the scenes, the toll was mounting. He toured relentlessly. The pressure to keep delivering, to remain the king, grew heavier. What kept Elvis going wasn't just the applause, it was something deeper. Maybe it was chasing the magic he felt as a boy strumming his first guitar. Maybe it was a desire to feel close to his mother again. Or maybe, just maybe, it was to outrun the silence he felt when the crowds went home. And now, with the attic open and those old hidden boxes spilling their truths, we're forced to ask, what really drove Elvis? What secrets did he keep locked away? Not just in that room, but inside himself. The gates of Graceland had never seen anything like it. In the soft, early morning light after Elvis Presley's passing, the streets of Memphis were flooded with a sea of mourners. They came in silence, in tears, in disbelief. Nearly 100,000 people stood shoulder to shoulder, drawn not by the flash of stardom, but by the loss of a man who had become something more than music. He was a symbol of rebellion, charm, heartbreak, and American culture itself. Inside the mansion, Elvis lay still, dressed in a white suit and a sky-blue shirt, surrounded by white roses, as if frozen in the moment that had always defined him. Iconic and unreachable. 17 white Cadillacs moved like ghosts through Memphis on the day of his funeral. A striking tribute that spoke to both his love for luxury and the weight of his absence. The cars gleamed under the August sun, a final nod to the man who once rode in them like royalty. James Brown stood solemn at the service. So did Sammy Davis Jr., Caroline Kennedy, Priscilla, and a young Lisa Marie. Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, looked hollowed out, holding on to memories too painful to name. It wasn't just the end of a performer. It felt like the end of an era. But behind the spectacle, behind the crowds and the cameras, deeper questions lingered. Why was the attic of Graceland sealed for nearly 5 decades? Why did the family guard it like a vault of secrets? And what truths were they trying to protect? In the years after his death, the Presley estate became a multi-million-dollar empire. Graceland turned into a tourist pilgrimage site, and Elvis merchandise boomed. But that's only part of the story. Behind the polished surface of legacy and nostalgia was a financial web that stretched into the modern world. At the time of his passing, Elvis's net worth was shockingly low. Reports claimed it was under $5 million. Despite selling over 1 billion records, bad deals and extravagant spending had drained his fortune. It wasn't until Priscilla Presley took over management of the estate in 1979 that things turned around. Priscilla transformed Graceland from a draining liability into a gold mine. She negotiated licensing deals, authorized Elvis-themed attractions, and launched Elvis Presley Enterprises. Under her watch, the Presley estate eventually soared to over $100 million in value. Her business instincts not only saved Elvis's legacy, they redefined it. One of the biggest financial lessons from Elvis's journey? It's not what you earn, it's how you protect and manage it. He had a taste for timepieces, too. Elvis frequently wore Omega and Hamilton watches, but it was his 18-karat gold Rolex King Midas that stood out. A symbol of luxury and excess, the watch became a part of his signature style. Even today, fans and collectors covet it, not for the brand, but because it touched the wrist of a king. In terms of real estate, Graceland wasn't just his sanctuary, it was his kingdom. Purchased in 1957 for $102,500, The mansion included 13.8 acres and eventually housed racquetball courts, a meditation garden, and his famous jungle room. It was part museum, part fortress. And yet, for all the lavish upgrades, the most mysterious room, the attic, remained locked. Not just physically, but emotionally. Now that it's been opened, the contents are reportedly raw and human. Personal letters, medical records, scribbled lyrics, even heartbreaking notes from Lisa Marie. They reveal a man in conflict, fighting to hold on to his fame, family, and identity. There were also signs of Elvis's attempts to secure his future. He had insurance policies covering health, performance risks, and personal assets. But they weren't enough to shield him from the machine of fame or the people who saw him more as a product than a person. Dr. George Nick Nikopoulos, for example, claimed he was helping Elvis by controlling his prescriptions. But the numbers tell a different story. Over 8,000 prescriptions in less than 2 years. And yet, the legal system cleared him. A decision that still raises eyebrows. Years later, in 2020, author Sally Hodel reignited the conversation with her book Destined to Die Young, suggesting Elvis's demise wasn't purely due to medication, but to underlying genetic illness. Her claims reframed everything. What if Elvis wasn't self-destructive, but simply out of options? What if he was trying to manage an invisible inherited pain, one that no one understood? It's a powerful reminder that icons are still human. They bleed, they break, they burn out. And sometimes, the brightest lights hide the deepest shadows. The attic at Graceland may have held secrets, but it also held truths about pain, about family, about survival. Today, the Presley family stands at a crossroads. With Lisa Marie's passing in 2023 and disputes over Graceland's future swirling through courts, the legacy hangs in the balance again. The mansion that once echoed with laughter, music, and heartbreak now stands as both a memorial and a mystery. What happens next isn't just about preserving history. It's about understanding it. Elvis Presley gave the world music, style, and magic. But what he never had was peace. In one unmarked corner, tucked beneath layers of old insulation, a single box sat quietly, untouched, undisturbed, almost like it had been hiding in plain sight. Inside, nestled between reels of magnetic tape and a handwritten inventory list, was something that would change everything. An audio recording. No label, no date, no hint of what it contained. Just an old tape, likely unnoticed for decades. But when played, the voice was unmistakable. It was Elvis. Tired, vulnerable, but unmistakably him. What he said on that tape turned whispers into earthquakes. "I'm not who they think I am," he said. "They remember the crown, but they forgot the weight." That single line hit like thunder. Hooked yet? Because this wasn't a press statement. This wasn't showbiz. This was the raw confession of a man who had spent years on stage, drenched in light, but who had lived most of his pain in the shadows. Lisa Marie Presley once admitted she'd sneak into the attic, searching through those boxes. She said it like it was no big deal, but that simple statement unraveled the truth. That attic wasn't just a room. It was a sanctuary. A memory sealed off from the myth. That's the part that hits hardest. The more you dig through those boxes, the more the legend slips away. The hair, the hips, the headlines, all of it blurs. What's left is a man carrying more weight than anyone realized. Not the king of rock and roll, just Elvis, the human. And once you meet him that way, there's no going back. But then came the twist that's haunted fans for almost 50 years. When the world heard Elvis had passed in 1977, denial wasn't just a reaction, it was a movement. Rumors exploded within hours. A man calling himself John Burroughs, allegedly an alias Elvis had once used, was reportedly seen at Memphis Airport the next day. Then came sightings in Michigan. Someone who looked like him, sounded like him, even moved like him, spotted eating at Burger King. Fans clung to the idea. Maybe he didn't die. Maybe he just walked away. Things only got wilder. That same year, a novel called Orion was released. Its plot? A superstar fakes his death to escape the pressures of fame. Coincidence? Hardly. And when a masked singer calling himself Orion took to the stage with a voice hauntingly similar to Elvis, the conspiracy ignited like wildfire. Bootleg tapes followed, strange recordings of a man who sounded just like him, sometimes singing, sometimes rambling about being tired of the world. People listened not for proof, but for hope. Most of those tapes were exposed as fakes, impersonators trying to sell a dream. But the belief never disappeared, because for millions, the fantasy was more comforting than the truth. The truth meant that Elvis aged, suffered, and faded. But the myth? That meant he was still out there, hiding in plain sight. And then came a new theory, one that refuses to fade. A preacher named Bob Joyce began attracting attention. He sang with a familiar richness, and some fans swore the facial features matched. Never mind that he's decades younger than Elvis would be. Never mind logic. For those who believe, facts don't matter. What matters is that somewhere, somehow, the king might still be alive, singing to a small congregation, escaping the chaos he once ruled. But even if Elvis did pass in 1977, what surfaced in that attic felt like a resurrection. His presence was embedded in every item. It wasn't just nostalgia. It was evidence of a life lived out of sight. It's as if he left clues behind, waiting for the world to finally look past the legend. So now we ask you, if this is the Elvis we missed all along, what else don't we know? And do you believe the king ever truly left the building? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes the greatest comeback isn't on a stage. It's in the truth that was hiding all along.